Hello, and welcome to the Looking Place podcast, where we seek to guide our listeners through a journey of discovering your intrinsic power. I'm T.
And I'm Mel. And I just want to say welcome. Welcome to the Looking Place. We are so happy that you are here. I wanted to introduce our special guest this evening, and it is Tiffany Smith from the Soul Clinic here in Atlanta, Georgia. And today we're going to be talking about parts therapy. And Tiffany's going to explain all of it. And here we go. Tiffany, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Hi, Melody, and hi, T.
Hi.
Um, and so basically, we want to talk about like parts, and I call it parts. I know you said IFS. Um, I guess where I can start is like how I kind of discovered parts therapy. I think several years ago, I went to I went to a course, and in this course they were talking about these different parts of and back then they were using different archetypes. I know sometimes, people use alter egos, archetypes, ego states. And when I was doing the different activities, it helped me to kind of organize my thoughts and organize different things in my mind. And so then I went further and I realized, oh my God, this is actually a modality that people use. And I went through training with IFS. And basically, what parts is what they say is from the time that we come into this life, we come in as a whole human being, perfect, whole, and complete, this little baby. Then something happens. And in that moment, if you don't have the resources, mental or emotional resources to make sense of what happened, then your brain creates a part to survive that situation. And so there's like a split in your personality and your being. And if you think about it, like say for instance, I've had clients where they have memories of being 10, 12 months old and an older sibling hits them with a ball or something. And it's just out of the blue, right? And so something as simple as that creates a split because it's like this is something that I can't make sense of. And so in order to survive life, we split off. Now, from the time you're born until 18, if you think about all of the different situations that you've been through in life, there are a lot of things where your mind you weren't able to make sense of. And every time there was a situation where you didn't have the mental and emotional resources, then your brain created a part. So then we get to 18, right? We're going out into the world to figure out, who I am and create my life. And most of the times what happens is by the time you get 18, 18 to 20, 25, 30, you're trying to figure out, well, who am I? Because you've broken off into all of these different parts and you've had to be all of these different people in order to survive childhood that you really don't know who you are at that point.
Yes.
And so a lot of people will say, well, what do you mean by a part? And so the best way that I can explain it is that, everybody has parts that they operate inside of every single day. If you're a mom, there's a mom part of you. If you're in a relationship, there's the part of you that's in that relationship. If you're a friend, there's a part of you that goes out with your friends. And sometimes I'll tell people, if I got, let's just say 20, 30 of your closest friends and family members, and I ask them, well, tell me about that person, 9 times out of 10, they're going to say something totally different. And it's almost like a part of you shows up in the marriage or in the relationship. Another part of you shows up with your mom. Another part of you shows up with your dad. Another part of you shows up at work. I know A lot of people call it code switching. But that's another way to say, okay, I have a part that shows up at work, but I have a part that shows up at home with my family. Does that make sense? So it's like parts is how our brain kind of makes it's kind of how our brain like kind of, I guess the best way I can explain it is how our brain organizes all of our experiences.
So, question, would this be on a more conscious level? Like you mentioned, like the part of you that shows up to work or the part of you that's the mom or the romantic partner. In my mind, I kind of associate that with, how we put on different masks and show up kind of differently depending on the setting, but we do it on a conscious level. Is this conscious or is this more subconscious? Because when you say term split, then my mind goes off into like a split personality disorder that's more
Yeah.
subconscious than conscious. So
Yeah.
can you clarify with that?
A lot of people, when we talk about parts, a lot of people think about the movie, what is it, Split?
Split. Yeah, it's literally
Where
where my mind went.
there are
Yeah.
all of these different personalities that people have.
Mhm.
And a lot of people look at it from a negative connotation. And if you really think about it, a lot of people have parts of them that they have no control over. That's where self-sabotage comes in at.
Oh,
Because
okay.
self-sabotage is unconscious. If you
Okay.
know that, if I eat this if I drink this soda, or if I do this specific activity and it's going to cause me harm, but no matter how consciously you still do it, that's sort of the same as split, right?
Okay.
But to really answer your question, when you're doing it as a child, like, and I don't know, like I've read a lot of research on it, as it's something that automatically happens, like like really really quick. So I don't know if I can say that you're consciously doing it. But what does happen is by the time you become 18 and older, you forget those decisions and choices that you made. You forget about it. You forget that I created a part of me that was judgmental and critical to deal with my parent that was judgmental and critical. You get what I'm saying? Like I created that part just so that I can deal with that. I forgot
Mhm.
that. And then
Mhm.
by the time I get 18, because I forgot that I created that part just so that I can survive. And the logic was, if I can judge and criticize myself and be perfect, then I could reduce the judgment and criticism that's coming from my parent.
Okay.
But then,
And it's not something that you're consciously thinking when
yeah,
you say that. Like you're not saying that like, if I
Mhm.
could do this, it just automatically happens. Would you
Okay.
say?
yeah,
Like,
it does. And you know what? I think at some level, yeah, as a younger mind, I'm thinking, well, if I be like this parent, then maybe I could, you know, I could be good enough, or I can be a good girl, or I can, be smart enough, right?
Mhm.
Now that
Mhm.
doesn't make logic sense as an adult, but as a kid, you're just trying to survive.
Okay.
So yeah, so to answer your question, T, on some level, yeah, we're conscious of it, and on some levels we're not.
Okay.
But what I've discovered over years of practice is we forget.
Okay.
So what once was conscious goes unconscious.
Mhm.
Yep. And so parts work is about represencing yourself, or bringing back into awareness those parts that you created they're still there. You're just not consciously aware of them.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
so you're helping people to become aware
Mm-hmm.
of those parts.
Yep.
Okay.
And how they impact your day-to-day life. And so one of the things, so there are different categories of parts. I say that everybody has an inner family. And so the different categories, IFS has, it's different. They use exiles, firefighters, and managers. And I don't use that. The way that I break it down is into three categories: children, teenagers, and adults.
Okay,
And
I like that.
there's a lot of things, conversations that are going on social media where you'll see different memes, and you'll see people talking about, the adult, the teenager, and the child. And so that's the easiest way for me to understand it. So I use it from that perspective. And how I look at it is the child is the youngest part of your brain that's more emotional.
Mm-hmm.
The teenager part of your brain is the it's a little the no, the child is the oldest part of your brain, but the youngest part of your brain.
Okay.
Then you got the teenager part of your brain, and then you have the adult part of your brain, which is the prefrontal cortex. It's the last part of your brain that gets developed.
Okay.
And so these three parts, when I relate to them, from those age categories too. And so
Okay.
it helps to kind of understand, what you're dealing with, what part it is, and how to communicate and relate to that part.
So when you make those correlations, your child, your teenager, your adult, are you speaking in terms of specifically where that part may have been developed at that stage in their life, or is this just a reference toward however that um, part presents, if that question makes sense?
Both.
Okay.
Yep. It could be a reference to how the part presents, and it could also be the stage of
Specifically
life
in
that
that stage of their life. Okay.
is.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing about it is, what I tell people, most teenager parts are like our defense mechanisms, and they only serve, and I'm not going to say they only serve, but majority of the time they serve to protect, and their number one commitment is the children.
Mhm.
So if there's a teenager part that is causing challenges, 9 times
Mhm.
out of 10 there's a child part that has something that's there, whether it's hurt, pain, whatever it is. There's a child part nearby.
Okay.
And so, and it's interesting because when you think about children, um, children start acting out when they get into adolescence.
Right.
And so that's where, the child has been through all of the different emotional stuff, right? And then by the time they come into adolescence, that's where the teenager starts to come in and say, hold up, wait, enough is enough. I'm gonna
Okay.
fight. And
Okay.
that's where those defense mechanisms start to show up, which is an expression of the emotions that child has dealt with.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, question. So, would you find in your practice of this parts therapy, is it always going to be relevant in response to trauma that occurred at some phase in life, or just because I feel like we could all, like, I guess resonate with having a version of ourselves that we present in different scenarios. So, could this be beneficial to just anybody wanting to work through some things, or is it always going to be kind of correlated to some form of trauma in childhood, teenagehood, or even adulthood?
Right. What I say, trauma is one of those words that is commonly being used
Mm-hmm.
nowadays. And
Mm-hmm.
so instead of saying trauma, what I would say is any experience that you did not have the mental or emotional resources to process
I can
create
appreciate that.
part.
I like that. I like that verbiage. I like how you put that. Okay.
Because it could just be used to empower you, right?
Right. Right.
So it could have been, mommy said that she was going to take us to get ice cream and she never did.
Mm-hmm.
And you really wanted to go get ice cream. And you
Mm-hmm.
thought that, on my way
Mm-hmm.
home, we going to get ice cream, and then mommy didn't get ice cream. That
Right.
can create apart
Okay.
because
Okay.
it's an experience that as a kid I can't emotionally or mentally process. And
Right.
so to deal with the emotions, whether it's grief of not having that experience, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
anger at mommy because she lied, then I got to create something to survive that experience.
Okay.
And it could be never ask people for anything, or don't trust what people say.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
okay.
So
Okay.
now
I
I
see this
have a
one.
part of me,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
that that still loves mommy, but then I have another part of me that wants to protect me.
Right.
And so that part doesn't ask for stuff.
Oh, that's powerful. Okay. That's a
Mm.
powerful awareness to come to. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
It's as simple as that. Like,
Right.
and I
Right.
try to get people to understand it doesn't have to be like dramatic trauma, right?
Right.
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 Be something as simple as you say you was taking me to get ice cream and you didn't get me ice cream.
Yeah. Because trauma can be completely subjective, like pain. So, okay. I get that. I get that.
Mm-hmm. Wait, Shannon. So, what's one of your, if you could, like, don't violate anything here, but one of your worst cases, and you saw this person get better?
Let's see. You know what? It's interesting because I don't look at I don't look at like I wouldn't say, okay, this is the worst case, right?
Okay.
Because I don't look at it like that. When I look at people
Mm-hmm.
and their parts, the way that I see them is the state or condition of their parts
Mm-hmm.
is in correlation to the relationship that they have to themselves. And so I've had clients that have had parts
Mm-hmm.
that don't trust them.
Mm.
And so I wouldn't say that would be a worst case, but if you think about it, if you have a part that doesn't trust you,
Mm-hmm.
then it creates a life where you're second guessing everything.
Right.
Wow.
Wow.
And
That's
yeah, and you know, there's there's a there's emotions that you have no control over because
For
of
mm,
example, like, what do you mean?
so for example, anger, sadness, grief, anxiety. And so when there's a part of you that doesn't really trust you, then there's a lot of people out there that suffer with stuff like that, thinking that there's no relief. And so I've had a lot of clients come and, I've had situations where, yeah, their parts don't really trust them.
Mm-hmm.
So it takes something to get their parts to trust that it's going to be okay. And it's really like a building a relationship with yourself.
I love that.
Mm.
I
That's
love
a good
that.
way to put it. Okay.
Hmm.
So in a session, is it always kind of required that you're going through each part and spending time on each part individually, or can you kind of ebb and flow through different parts? Or are you focused on only one part? Like, what does that look like for a person who may be interested in getting an idea of what a session would look like?
It just depends. What I normally do is there's always a presenting challenge, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
something, an expectation, some
Mm-hmm.
type of result that people want to produce.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we start in starting to identify all of the different parts. Like the first step is to really identify what parts do you have and
Mm-hmm.
building
Mm-hmm.
a relationship with those parts.
Okay.
Okay.
And so
What does early stages of identification look like for a person who would be coming to you completely oblivious to this whole concept? How do you explore where the parts are and how they're presenting? And yeah, what does that look like?
yeah, what I tell people is everything is a part. And so when I say everything is a part, a body sensation, an emotion, a thought, So you can hear them. It's a thought. You can, like, sometimes when I do different activities with clients and I ask them to close their eyes, they can see them. They can see
Mhm.
themselves as 5. They can see
Mhm.
themselves at different ages. So
Okay.
you can see them, you can hear them, you can feel them. It can manifest as a physical sensation in your body, where people have butterflies in their stomach, or their leg will do something. So it can be anything. And so what I tell people is, just start tracking different thoughts, feelings, emotions, body sensations. Just start tracking that stuff.
Okay.
And as they start to track it, then we start to put it together to create, oh, okay, this is a part of you, or that's a part of you.
Okay.
But it's so interesting. Like I tell people all the time, I've been doing it for so long, I can kind of hear the parts when people speak. So when I
Mhm.
hear people speak, I can hear different parts. Like
Okay.
when I talk to people, I don't hear just one person talking. I can hear the multiple different parts of people
Okay.
when they're talking.
Okay.
And I think maybe I've kind of trained myself, but it's like I was talking to somebody today, and it was a coaching call, and I asked a question, and it was a straight question, and then the person was like, "Yeah, I do, but no, And so anytime there's two conflicting,
Mhm.
I know that those are two different parts.
Okay.
And and so in that moment, what I told him, I said, okay, yeah, there's a part of you that doesn't, but that's not the part I want to talk to. I wanted to talk to the part that does. So
Okay.
part that does.
Okay.
And as soon as I separated it that way, he was like, oh, okay, great. And then we went with the part that does. But see,
Okay.
people get stuck in, a part of me does, but a part of me doesn't.
That dual mindedness, they get stuck in the middle. Like, okay. Okay.
Because we've been taught that it's only one mind, it's just one Tiffany. No, that's not true. So you don't have no access in how to bring reconciliation or how to deal with that. So you just stay
Okay.
stuck.
Okay.
Another analogy that I tell my clients sometimes, I said, if you went to the doctor, if you went to the hospital, and you were in pain, what would be the first thing the doctor would ask you? What would be the first thing they would ask?
Oh, where's the pain and how bad is it?
Yeah, they would ask, where is it? What part?
Mm-hmm.
And most people don't operate like that. They say, I'm in pain. I'm in pain. And can you imagine going to the emergency room saying I'm in pain? And they say, well, where is it? You just say, I'm in pain. It's everywhere.
Oh, yeah, I see where you're going. Okay. So
Yeah,
you
you
don't say my knee is in pain. You gotta, okay. You're saying
you
I'm in pain instead of saying I feel pain in my knee and
exactly.
identify. Okay.
My
Okay.
chest hurts or
Yep.
shoulder or something.
Right.
The quicker you can identify what part of the body it is, the quicker they can get you to a specialist, the quicker they can get you
Right.
to figure out what it is. But if you just keep saying I, then we're gonna be here all night trying to go through your whole body and figure out what's going on. And that's
Okay.
in traditional counseling and therapies. People be there all day, all night, all years trying to figure
Yes.
it out because they
Yeah.
keep I.
Yeah. Okay.
That is so true. And
That's
now
interesting.
that when we talk about it, I can recall conversations where I will say, even before I knew about this, it's a part of me that doesn't want to do that. A part of me wants to do this. And I hear it in other people now, and people say, part of me wants to go, and a part of me wants to stay. And they're not dealing with parts, it's just the language.
Mhm.
And but they don't realize that they're dealing with parts. They're
Mm-hmm.
just That's just how we sometimes talk. A part of me wanted to take the job, and a part of me didn't.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a
Yeah.
part of me wanted to go on the vacation, but there was a part of me that wanted to stay. I could, yeah, yeah. I see where we do that, and we
And
never classified it as part stuff.
no, we don't. And people don't have the access to the information, so they don't know what to do after that.
Right.
They don't know how
Mm-hmm.
to resolve it. They don't know how to um they don't know where to go from there. So they just get stuck there.
They just get stuck there.
Mm.
Got it. Okay. Okay.
Yep.
Very good. And what's the time frame would you say that somebody can get help? Like, is it a 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, or you don't really know? Like, how do you deal with that?
Nope. We're going to be discovering parts of ourselves, I think, for eternity until there is no more.
Mm.
It's the way that I look at it is you're building a relationship with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're going to always be building and maintaining and managing the relationship to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And
So the
so what
goal, I'm sorry, let me cut you off.
go on.
I was going to ask, so is the goal in therapy to identify the parts and then be rid of them, for lack of a better way of saying it, or identifying the parts and reconciling with them and kind of bringing all the parts into collaboration? Like, what's the goal when you're identifying where you are in the parts of those three different parts as you name them?
And so no, we're not getting rid of any
Oh,
parts.
yeah. Okay.
We love them.
Okay, that's what I like to hear. Okay, because I wasn't sure what the end goal is, because what you said was so poignant. We'll be identifying parts until we're no longer in these bodies. So what's the goal in the therapy?
Mm-hmm.
So the ultimate goal is to come to acceptance.
Okay,
Acceptance is another way for integration, is
okay.
to integrate,
Awareness. Okay,
yeah, accept all of you.
okay.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. Okay.
And
Well,
so
are these new? I'm sorry, Tiffany. Are these new parts that just keep coming up, or are we dealing with the old parts, like you said, until we transition? So, is it just like thousands and thousands of parts, or just the certain parts keep coming up, or is it like a layer, an onion that you're peeling back, and there are little parts up under there? They have babies, that sort of thing.
you know what? I think you do get to a point where you've kind of discovered the majority of your parts, right?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And I think there's still parts of you that you may not be aware of, that you're still like, oh my God. Because if you think about it, from 0 to 18,
Mm-hmm.
there were so many life experiences where you could have split and created a part,
Lots of.
right?
Yes.
The only way that stuff gets triggered is for you to be in that experience again.
Okay.
There's this whole boundaries conversation that is big in the mental health world, where
Right.
people have created boundaries where they don't. It's like they kind of manage their world. The more boundaries that you put up, and then you don't have those experiences to discover different things about yourself, because you've kind of created this space for yourself.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So kind of like compartmentalizing to protect yourself, or it's like a protective mechanism to, okay.
That is, a boundary really is like a compartmentalization. You get what
Okay.
I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? Like,
Yeah.
even when I think about my daughter, like, she's just like, no negative
Yeah.
energy, no people
Right.
around me that does
Right.
this, that,
Right.
right? Now, there's nothing wrong with creating boundaries. There's nothing wrong with, being present to what you can be with and what you can't be with.
Mm-hmm.
And the question that, I'm always looking at, what part of me is it that can't be with that?
Okay. Okay.
What part of me does that trigger, and why?
Mm-hmm.
What is that experience that, like, what is that?
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you've never had an experience of it, then it wouldn't bother you.
Right.
Exactly. I get that.
It's
You
just be
wouldn't.
like, oh,
You
okay.
wouldn't. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it wouldn't bother you. So, and the thing about it is, like, I look at it from this standpoint, the more you avoid those experiences, then you're also avoiding an aspect of yourself. You're avoiding a part of yourself. There's a huge word that people use also in the mental health world. They say shadow work.
Mm-hmm.
Shadow work is you're identifying the shadow parts of yourself, the shadow aspects of yourself. And shadow is nothing more than these are parts that you have hidden somewhere in the dark. That's the dark side of you. Those are the dark parts of you. Parts that you don't want nobody to see, parts that the world has outcast.
Okay.
And so, like for Black men, the world has outcast their angry part. It's not okay to be angry for a Black man. It's not okay to have an angry part for a Black woman.
Okay.
And so those are parts of us that we just kind of put in shadow, and that doesn't really work. Because if
When somebody comes to you like that, then you're going to work with them on freeing that angry part.
Exactly.
Okay.
Being able to embrace and accept that part.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what it's all about is acceptance, love, acceptance, and embracing that part.
Now, second question, I mean, are all parts inherently negative or negatively impacting, or are you only focusing on the parts that are negatively impacting, or are we coming to an understanding of all the parts, whether they be perceived as positive or negative?
Well, the world puts those assessments on them.
Right.
I don't look at them that way.
Okay.
I just look at it from an aspect of there are parts of you that work and parts that don't work, and they don't produce the outcome that you want.
Mm-hmm.
So I know is all parts, no matter whether they're so-called good or bad. In there is a situation where that part would work.
Right. Okay. I see what you mean. Yeah.
And so, you were asking something. Hold up. And so, the other thing I was gonna say is all parts care about the person. So they're all all parts love you.
Okay.
All of them.
All in service to the person.
Yeah, they're in service to the person. And so sometimes the way that they try to protect you actually hurt you, but they don't know that. It's there's in logic and communication. So yeah.
Because they're just trying to protect you.
Exactly.
So they could hurt you, not intentionally, is what you're
Not
saying.
intentionally. Yep. It's never intentional.
But what is a statement that a person would say to a part?
Question.
What do you mean?
Like, let's say if it's an angry part, what would you have that client to say to that angry part?
Well, what I tell people is like one first step that you can do, something simple that you can do at home, is just start acknowledging the parts. Like you just acknowledging, because a lot of people don't even acknowledge their parts. They don't even acknowledge their emotions. They don't even acknowledge it. You ask somebody, are you angry? They say, no, I'm not angry. But you can physically see like something's going on. Your voice is up and you're screaming, and so it's just like to start by acknowledging the different parts, acknowledging how you feel, acknowledging different things helps. So that's what I would.
There's a part of me that's angry.
Mm-hmm.
You would have them by doing that. Like, there's a part of me that feels fear, something. Okay.
Yep. I would say just start acknowledging it and allowing it to be. Something else
You mentioned about skill, something earlier you talked about tracking. I wanted to circle back to. Can you explain a little bit more what a person that wants to at least start the practice of this acknowledging parts, what does tracking look like? Can you give an example for someone to know what they're tracking and how to track it?
So what I would say is this to start with identifying your top 5 parts, right? And so when you look at yourself, what would be the top 5 parts? Like what are the top, and we spoke about like the world would say there are good and bad parts, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
there, I don't want to say bad parts, but you can start with, what are the parts that cause you the biggest challenges?
So we're not talking about identifiers in life. So a person could say, well, I'm a mother, my kids cause me a challenge. We're not talking about the identification of, we're talking about the mental, psychological perspective of, correct?
Your
Okay.
inner world.
Okay. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep,
Okay.
parts, because parts are like a inner family.
Okay.
So it's all about you and your inner world. And so when you look at yourself, what are the top, if you just looked, right, day to
Mm-hmm.
day, what are the top 5 parts that you would say, you know what, these 5 parts give me a run for my money?
So like for me, I can say impatience has been a thing that I've acknowledged within myself. That would be considered a part.
Yep,
Okay.
impatience. What
Okay.
else?
Um, uh, Spitefulness
Mm-hmm.
was a
What
part I
else?
became aware of.
Mm-hmm.
Rebelliousness.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, replace spitefulness with rebelliousness. I'm not spiteful. I could be rebellious. So rebellious. So impatience, rebelliousness, heightened a heightened emotional response that I will later regret. I don't know how to put that into one word. So
What's the response? The emotional
reactive,
response.
reactiveness. So,
But what?
oh, what is it? Anger or
Okay.
hurt.
Yep. Okay. So there's a impatient part, a angry part, a hurt part, and a rebel.
Mm,
So those are 4 parts. And what I
okay.
would start with those 4 parts, and what you would write them down,
Mm-hmm.
and you would become an investigator.
Okay.
And when I say an investigator, your job would be, like I would tell you, starting today, you have 4 children. One
Mm-hmm.
is always impatient, one is always angry, one is always hurt, and one is the rebel of the bunch.
Okay.
I
Okay.
want you to
Okay.
learn everything that you can learn about those 4 children.
Okay.
What time do they get up? When do they come out? Who triggers them?
Okay.
How long do
Mm.
they stay?
Okay.
Is the rebel and the angry always together, or is it the rebel and the hurt? Does the rebel cause the hurt? Does the rebel cause the anger? Is the rebel initiating the anger? You want to see if there are any relationships between the two.
Okay. I see.
Is it the hurt first and then the anger comes out? So you want to see they how they um how they
Present,
work together, like
correlate. Yeah.
relationships, but then you also want to start tracking and see, what are their patterns.
Okay.
And
Okay.
so then you start to understand and learn different things about yourself. And once you start tracking them, then the next step is we'll start communicating with these different parts
Okay.
to go
Mm.
to understanding their story. And
Okay.
so what something else is, I tell my clients, we never use I, because when you say I, 9 times out of 10, if it's not all of you, what you end up doing is dismissing a part of you.
Okay.
Oh.
Okay.
And yep, and you really don't want to do that.
So what do you say if you're not saying I?
A part.
Oh, okay. Okay. That's
Apart.
okay. That's
Yep, a
powerful.
part.
And therefore you're not excluding any part.
Yep.
This part is okay.
That's quite
Yeah.
liberating.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is quite liberating.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, eventually, like, there are certain things that I can say and eventually you'll build relationships with your parts where they don't care. They don't care what you say, how you say it, right? Because there's this established sense of trust and relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for me, there was a long period of time where I honored all of my parts. Like, I don't care what they say, what they want to do. I'm like your number one supporter.
Okay.
And so now I'm at a place where it doesn't matter what I say. My parts will be like, we understand. She love us. We not. They don't care. But there was, back when I was still trying to build relationships with my parts, there were times where if I would say something, then I got another part saying, that ain't, nope, that's not it. Nope. Like, sometimes people will say, Well, this is a big one. Do you forgive the person? Yeah, I forgive them. But another part saying, but I don't.
Mm-hmm.
No,
Yeah.
I don't
Mm-hmm.
forgive them. I'm still angry at them.
Mm-hmm.
And it creates a conflict within yourself because the
Mm-hmm.
adult part of you is saying, I forgive them. But the teenager part of you is saying, nope, I don't. And I never
Mm-hmm.
will.
Mm-hmm.
And so then it creates this disconnect.
So how would you handle that?
Exactly.
Then,
Good question.
yeah, well, then at the end of the day, we can't forgive until all parts agree.
Okay.
So
So
we
to
just
be
have,
in agreement, so using that example, one part of me forgives while the other part of me doesn't. Are we then in is the intention to focus an attention on one part or the other? So focus the attention on the part that forgives and don't feed the part that doesn't, or unpack the part that doesn't, like is
yeah. So I'll give you an example. Like there was, when I was going through discovering my different parts, there was a part of me that was really angry and didn't forgive my grandmother for things that she did. And I would notice every time I would talk to her on the phone, there was this snappy, angry, irritated part of me that was just like, "Ugh."
okay.
And so what I did was I had to kind of pull back because inside of my commitment is I don't want to be disrespectful.
Right.
But there's a part of me that I wasn't able to bring reconciliation to. So how about we just need some space
Mm-hmm.
until I can build enough of a relationship with this part
Okay.
and get it to a place where it's ready to forgive.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Okay.
in doing that, I'm honoring myself, but I'm also honoring the part of me that respects and honors my grandmother.
Okay.
You get what I'm saying? Because
Yeah.
at the end of the day, I got to make sure that I got peace within my inner household. I sacrifice
Absolutely.
my inner household for somebody else. And so, and I come from a space of unconditional love and acceptance. So
Right.
there is nothing that my parts can do that I'm just going to be like, y'all jacked up or make them wrong about it.
Okay.
It's like, okay, I got it. We did it and we'll work through it. That may not work next time, but hey, it is what it is. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I believe so. I think where I'm a little bit just kind of questioning it within myself. So going back to the notion, if we're not necessarily bringing awareness to parts so we can eradicate them, we want to be in acceptance of them. By that example, the unforgiving part, if the goal is not, if the goal is to have that part be in communion with forgiveness, then ultimately we are trying to eradicate that part of unforgiveness. No, am I not? Okay. Click, fix that for me if you don't mind.
No, because if a part of you doesn't want to forgive, the only reason nine times out of 10, the only reason it doesn't want to forgive is because it's holding on to something.
Okay, right. All right, agreed.
And so then, well, let's talk about it. What are you
Oh,
holding on? What do you
okay.
feel happen if you let it go? What's
That makes
there?
sense. That makes sense. Okay.
So it's all about communication and having a conversation because again, all parts they really care. Like they're not just these bad parts. Like they
Right.
really care and they're committed to something. But it's just being able to understand and get what that is.
Okay. That's
So
powerful.
as I'm listening, I really see how this can help all people. And I do see how there's a lot of stuff for trauma. I know trauma may not be the right word because that's how the body processes what happened to us. But we can go back for generations with people of color. And it's a lot of stuff that we hold on to, a lot of stuff. In a lot of instances, I feel like we don't get to where we want to be in life because of something that maybe happened to our ancestors that was passed down to us. And now our little parts are frazzled. Can that happen too? Because
Yep.
I think about a lot of fear that existed with our ancestors.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's passed down to us, then we have that fear and we just keep passing it. It's just passed along. But really, it's a part of us that we can work through, correct?
Yeah. It really is.
What
Like
about like gang violence. Like, I think my mind is going like, ooh, we could help a lot of people with this stuff. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of people,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So it's like T was talking about, it's just not for mental like trauma or anything, but a lot of people can be disempowered, not
Mm-hmm.
living up to their full potential. You know, this person might want to have his own studio. They don't really do it. This person's artsy. There's a part of them that holds them back. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yep.
So,
Yep. It's there's a part gives you a way to disidentify with disempowering ways of being.
get that.
And
Get that.
the more you identify, whatever you identify with, you're giving it control and power
That's
over your life.
Mm.
yeah.
Mm.
So
Oh
again,
my
we
God.
always come back around to the awareness being where your power is. Yeah.
Yeah. And so parts is just a way to identify and become aware of what you have given your power to and what
Absolutely.
you're identifying with that you're possibly not even consciously aware of that's
Yeah.
running your life.
That's powerful. Yeah.
Yeah, I get that. Okay.
Well,
All
Tiffany,
right.
can you tell us some resources that people might be able to locate to seek this type of therapy, or how to even maybe connect with you to receive this type of assistance and navigation?
And before you do that, I want to ask you, are you able to do this all over the state, all over the world, or are you confined to a certain area?
No, I do virtual sessions, I do Zoom sessions, I do phone sessions. And so basically the Soul Clinic is where I operate out of, and the website is atosoulclinic.com. And
SOUL clinic, correct?
SOUL, yep,
Okay.
ATLSOUL clinic.com.
Okay.
And like I think we started off with, you can go on Amazon and purchase books from IFS. IFS is Internal Family Systems. You can Google Internal Family Systems, and there are tons of books out there. You can Google parts therapy. And there's tons of resources out there. So there are groups on Facebook that you probably can join where people are doing the work. So there are a lot of resources all over the place.
Okay. Awesome.
And then we can put your information below as well.
Yep, we definitely can.
Are you accepting new clients?
I am.
Okay. Okay. All
Mm-hmm.
right.
This has been informative. This is the first time I've ever heard of this type of therapy, and I definitely, through this conversation, see how powerful it can be. So, thank you for doing the work that you do. Thank you for sharing this information. I'm grateful.
Thank you so much, because just with what you shared about disempowering people get power, that's the whole vibe right there.
Mm-hmm.
Disempowered, and you can actually be empowered. And like you said, without having to go through long drawn out therapy session, not knocking therapy at all.
Exactly.
However, you can get power. And do you find that it works quickly at times?
Yeah, I do. And I do find that it works quickly. And I also find that it it brings clarity and understanding real quick.
Real quick. Okay. Because
Yeah.
that's what people want these days. They want quick.
Mhm.
Get it done.
You know,
Figure
so
it out.
wonderful.
But
Yeah,
again,
and
like you said earlier, this can be a journey that you're on for a lifetime, and it doesn't have to be a negative journey. It could just be a journey through awareness of those different parts and how they're presenting and how they're evolving. And so, yeah, I like that.
And what you're
Right.
saying, you
Right.
can, yes. So
yep,
that's, yeah. Mm-hmm.
yep, you don't. And it's the biggest thing that I sometimes I get sad about is when there are the people that, unfortunately, there's a part of them that makes the decision that they don't want to be here anymore.
Mm.
That bothers me because, you know, what I know to be true is that's just a part.
Just a
And if
part.
people really got that that's just a part of you, and you know there's nothing wrong with that part of you, and it's just a part, and there's so many other parts that want to be here,
Yeah.
but because people don't have access to this information, this
Yeah.
knowledge to know how to make sense of it in their mind,
Yeah.
they make these rash decisions.
Yeah.
And there's help, there's help, there's, you know, understanding that could be available just through this modality. So
Okay.
That's
yeah.
amazing.
Wow.
That's wonderful.
Well, we're committed to getting the word out.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. Anything else? T?
No. Miss Tiffany Love Smith, thank you so much for sharing and caring enough to make this your priority. So I appreciate the information. I'm grateful for your time. And I definitely know someone listening is going to benefit a great deal from hearing this. So thank you.
Yes.
Thank
I just want to say thank you for your contribution to the world.
Yes.
I know you're
Absolutely.
committed to a better world where there's just love and connection. I do know
Yes.
that about you. And so thank you for this. I
thank
appreciate
you.
it. Mhm.
Mhm.
Thank
All
you.
right.
And thank you,
All
everyone who saw fit to take your time to listen to this episode of The Looking Place. We're grateful, and we hope that you've gotten something from this to help guide you on your journey.
Yes, yes, yes. If you have any questions, comments, buts, please feel free to message us. All right.
All right? Peace and love, everyone. Take care.